Good evening. Welcome to the November 22nd Administration and Public Works Committee. My name is Bobby Burns, Councilmember Burns, 5th Ward, and we have a quorum, but let's roll call in just to be sure. I believe we have a member online.
Councilmember Kelly,
Here.
Councilmember Braithwaite, Councilmember Nusma,
Here.
Councilmember Burns,
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Okay, we have a quorum. Next up is public comment. We have one public speaker. I believe it's Mr. Vasilko.
Thank you. So I did send through my comments earlier via email, but for AP&W, my comments were item A3. I'd ask that you reject that. Don't know why the city has to subsidize martial arts training at the Levy Center. Item A4, I'd ask that you reject this. This started out being a one-time donation to this group, and now it's become an expectation. And just every year now, it's just, here's the bill, pay me my $50,000. So I think it should be rejected. And again, I think it's an expectation that's kind of grounded in politics more than anything else. Item A6, again, why does the city need to subsidize an arts program at Robert Crown? All of these programs should be designed to pay for themselves, and for whatever reason, we don't do that, and we should. APW item A9, I'm glad to see there's a new policy, but I never learned what the resolution of the lakefront sexual harassment scandal was, and I'd like to know that, or find out where I can look up the results of that study or that investigation. And I was also curious why, the people in charge at the time in their places, like Mr. Hemingway and our current interim city manager, they were in positions of authority, and yet, according to a Patch article, Mr. Hemingway just got off with a slap on the wrist, I guess, had to do some training of some kind, but the interim city manager, she should have been well aware of what was going on, if anyone was. So I think both of them, I'm curious why they're both working for the city of Evanston still. Item A10 and item A11, they both sound like great ideas, but in the end, we end up borrowing money in the form of general obligation bonds for both of those items. So I'm not sure what to make of that, other than this is what leads to in 2022 when we're talking about, another big obligation bond that has to be paid for. And it's because we chip in every so often early on. And I guess that's it for APW, other than you don't discuss the budget per se, but I'd like to see the budget postponed until other questions are answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is the consent calendar. A4 is being removed because it made it through AMPW, the last AMPW meeting, and was held at council. So that is being removed from the agenda. Councilmember Nusma, Kelly, and Reed, if you're with us, would you like to remove anything?
A3, A6, A9, A10, A11.
Anything after A7 is not on consent.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, those are items for consideration. So, but as for the items in the consent calendar, you said A3 and A6. Did I miss any? A3, A4. A4 is already off. That was held at council at the last meeting. So A3, A6, anything else? Nothing else? Okay. So can I get a motion for all the items except A3 and A6?
Mr. Chair, I'll move item A1, approval of the BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity for the period ending September 26, 2021, in the amount of $14,716.94. I move item A2, approval of the City of Evanston payroll bills list and credit card activity from the period of October 25th through November 7th in the amount of $2,779,272.22. Bills list ending November 23rd in the amount of $3,144,238.84. And credit card activity ending September 26th in the amount of $190,986.05. A3 is off the consent agenda.
Yep.
A4 should not have been on the agenda. I move item A5, contracts for the 2021 and 2022 snow tow program, authorizing the interim city manager to execute contracts in the amount not to exceed $60,000. Item A6 is off consent. I move item A7, approval of building automation service renewal agreement for HVAC systems at the police and fire headquarters for 2022 through 2024 with Siemens Industry Incorporated. This is in the amount of $30,593.05 for fiscal year 2022, $31,510.84 for 2023, $32,456.17 for 2024.
All right, Councilmember Nusma has moved the consent calendar. I will second. And can we get the roll call?
Councilmember Reed. Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite. Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye. Okay, so that leaves us with, first up, A3, approval of contract renewal with Connolly's Academy, Inc. Councilmember Kelly, I believe you pulled this.
Yeah, I just, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so can someone motion? Sorry.
I'll move item A3, approval of the contract renewal with Connolly's Academy Incorporated.
So Nusma has moved item A3. Is there a second? I will second. All right. Councilmember Kelly.
So are there, could someone just discuss any cost incurred here around this for the city?
Good afternoon, members of APW. Lawrence Hemingway, Director of Parks and Rec. These contracts are programmatic contracts where we hire the vendors to provide the services. We set a price range. The city collects all the revenue, and at the end of the day, we pay the contractor based upon the percentage split that we've negotiated with them. So we incur no cost other than promoting the programs in our regular brochures and booklets.
So we're making our money back plus some.
Yeah, we're not staffing it, nothing but, they're using our facility.
Well, that is a cost.
So, yes, there is some indirect cost for the use of the facility, but with the buildings, is open anyway. But we are not paying for staff to run these programs. It would be a lot more expensive if we hired the staff ourselves rather than hire the contractors and do it with a percentage split of revenue.
Yeah, I know, I want just some transparency on the total cost, like what we would if we had rented it out, just a real, like, final, in the end, like, roughly ballpark, what does the city gain, or what are we losing in the end? And if it's that we're just gaining a great program, then, and at a small cost, then I want to know that too, so.
Sure.
And real quick, so you can just answer both, and I'm just trying to get some clarity. Are we, when you say hire, does that mean we're allowing them to use the space at no cost, or are we paying them to provide the service and then we split the revenue?
Yes, we are paying them to provide the service, and we split the revenues. In terms of, cost of operating our buildings and what that is based upon every program, we don't do that. I have never been asked to run that kind of cost and put that as part of these types of programs. And so we do revenue splits with our actual individual contractors, and those, we negotiate what those various revenue splits are. And so it varies depending on the program. Martial arts, this particular program is a very large one, so we have a larger percentage in which we're getting a little bit more revenue versus maybe some of the other smaller programs where we may have a different percentage split depending on the number of kids we serve.
And just because I see a contract here, but what is the amount that we're hiring them for? What's the dollar amount?
So in the memo, we're projecting payments to Conley approximately $50,000.
Okay.
And revenues of about $84,000. So, and that's just based upon 2021's activity. So each year, the number of participation goes up and down. We saw a huge increase in 2021 and at the end of 2020 when we reopened. So this contract never came before this body because it was so low. But the demand that we've seen in recreation programming over the last 12 months has just been skyrocketed. And so the appropriate thing is to bring the contract before council based upon our anticipated payment to the vendor.
And I'm just trying to get clear. So that 50,000 includes that initial hiring amount?
There is no hiring amount.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get clear on.
Okay, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. We offer class at $100. I'm using an example. It costs $100 to register, and of that $100, the contractor will get 60, we will get 40. And you multiply that out by the number of participants, the number of classes, et cetera. This is a 60-40 contract. That's how it works.
And there's no guaranteed minimum. If 0 people show up,
There's no money we owe this contractor. No guaranteed minimum. We're estimating payment based upon this year's participation. But we don't know that answer until we actually go through the registration process.
So it's more of a structured as a partnership,
So it's another way to think about
we
it.
provide
Yeah,
the service, we split
that's
the
correct.
revenue.
But
Okay.
we don't pay the vendor
So
per
that's all-
se.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Yes.
I'm sorry, can you just, so the 50,000 that we pay the vendor, right?
Yeah, based on the revenue we collect.
It's
an
a
estimate.
revenue sharing agreement. I thought
Right.
initially there was this other amount plus the revenue sharing, but he's saying there is no other amount. It's just a straight revenue sharing agreement with them, 60-40.
Yes.
rather than hiring Taekwondo instructors and putting them on the city payroll and absorbing that cost at risk for whoever signed up for the program, whoever didn't, we're engaging a contractor. They're taking the risk to
Promote, get the numbers through the door,
Right.
et cetera. If nobody walks through the door, we owe them 0. It's
I mean,
based
we're
upon-
giving up the space. I mean, I just want to be clear. I think
Yes.
it sounds great. I know he has a good program, but it's not like, we are, that's why I was just looking for sort of a total amount of.
I mean, again, as I mentioned earlier, Councilmember Kelly, I will need to sit down and kind of do some kind of facility analysis on the cost of our utilities and all of that stuff for our buildings. Our buildings are open, and so we do our best to try to program them. And the options to program them is with city personnel or vendors that we do a revenue sharing type contract with. That's pretty much a model in this profession across the board.
And I guess to Councilmember Kelly's point, just the next time or I guess this is the time, the question is, are those other costs baked into this? Were they considered when the 60/40 determination was made?
Honestly, I understood that, but honestly, sir, no, not really. I mean, we wouldn't be able to afford it. I mean, again, Parks and Rec is a service. Our service is opening those doors, trying to get the people in the doors, and we have to find a way to balance, to provide programming at an affordable cost. So, part of my overall $6 million general fund that I get, that you guys allocate, is part of the cost of the facility. That's correct.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kelly? I am, I'm sorry.
Okay, aye.
Councilmember Nusma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye. All right. Item A6, contract renewal with Open Studio Project for art program at Robert Crown. Director, that's you too, ain't it? You want to talk a little bit about this one too?
So this one is also a revenue sharing contract, as you see, with a different percentage. We negotiated, it's not as large as the martial arts contract. Open Studios was the selected vendor when we did an RFP during the time that the building was being constructed. We had two, Evanston Arts Center and Open Studios were the two local folks who bid on it. We selected Open Studios. This is the last year of an extension for them, and then we will have to put it back out for services to run through after 2023 or starting in 2023. So this is just a renewal. The contract has the rights to execute a renewal, and that's what we're asking for.
Councilmember Kelly?
So can you tell us how it's done, how to do last year and years before? I know we had COVID, so I'm taking
there's a question in the bills, I think in the bills list, or we got questions today. We paid them about $30,000 for this contract. 30, that's it.
The number in that memo was $30,585.92.
Thank you, sir.
Started discussion before we had a motion.
Is there a motion for this? I'm sorry. A little off today.
So, I'm sorry, can you just,
Councilmember Kelly, give me 1 sec. Nusma, you wanna
I'll make the
real quick?
motion on item A6 to renew the contract with Open Studio Project for the art program at Robert Crown.
All right, I will second that. Councilmember Kelly.
just for myself and the public, so what is this in the end actually cost, separate from the space, just so I understand? Is it that 35 that Jonathan?
$30,500 is the amount of the total of checks that we have cut them. So about $30,500 for this past year. That's correct.
That's 75%, right?
Yes,
So a third of that, which is 25%, so roughly $10,000 is
We
what
made.
We made.
the city made. It's part
Okay,
of
so
our
it's
revenue.
from the revenue.
It's all based on revenue. You register, and we do a split of that registration fee. We collect all fees, and at the end of the program period, we cut the vendor submits an invoice, we cut the check based upon the contract.
Okay. And so here it says, so when we, instruction expenses from the registration fees.
I'm sorry.
Like, what it says here that we pay for the instruction, that the programmers are depositing the general fund, and instruction expenses are paid from account, which is a different number.
I have an account, so there's a revenue line item in our budget. That's where the revenue goes when people register. And we turn around on the expense side, there's an instructor services line item in our budget. We pay for all these contracts out of our instructor services based upon the specific building that the contract is for.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so by quick math, we take in about $40,000, 30 of that gets passed through to the provider, we keep 10.
I mean, that would be a 75-25 split.
More than enough to keep the lights on.
Yeah, thank you. It helps me make that so I get $6 million in general fund, but we make $6 million and all this revenue also. So we have a $12 million budget. I only get 6. We go make 6 million. So every dollar we get, we make $1 as a department, which is on the very high end professionally when you look around Parks and Rec. So we do very well, but that's how these programs are structured. Bring in some revenue, pay your expenses out the expense side, we keep some, the contractor makes some. So win-win, I believe.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We call the question, please. Thank you.
Calling the roll for item A6.
Yeah, we're on item A6, contract renewal with Open Studio project for our program at Robert Crown.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite. Aye. Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Okay, next up, items for consideration. We have first up, item A8, Resolution 125-R-21, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a 25-year easement agreement for certain storm sewer infrastructure located along McDaniel Avenue between Main and Dempster Streets and a 30-inch diameter relief sewer water outfall into the North Shore Channel at Greenleaf Street in the city of Evanston with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. Can someone move that?
I will make the motion on item A8 as you just read it, Mr. Chair.
I will second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite. Aye. Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Next up, item A9, Resolution 126R-21, adopting the city's updated sexual harassment policy. Can someone move item A9, please?
I will move item A9.
I will second. Any discussion?
I do want to spend a few minutes talking about this, given the issues we've had with sexual harassment or alleged sexual harassment within the city staff. So I just had some questions about how this policy was developed and does it represent best practices within the HR industry.
Oh,
Item A9.
Corporation Counsel, I don't know if you feel prepared to speak to Councilmember Newsom's question. Our interim HR director is not with us.
Sure. So, good evening, members of the committee. Michelle Hemphill-Ozuribo, Deputy City Attorney for City of Evanston. So as far as how this new policy differs from the previous policy, one of the key things with the new policy is that the state law mandated that we update and enact a new policy which would apply to staff as well as elected officials. So in the new policy, you'll see the people that this policy applies to, that's updated. Additionally, as far as the question on how this is developed, what we did is we had an outside firm revise the policy so that it would comply with the current state law. And we had, at the firm that we hired, we had subject matter experts on sexual harassment review our policy, update the policy so that they could craft a new policy that would be in compliance with the current law. So as far as when you say, are these best practices, we would say that yes, our law department finds that this is best practice because we had people who were independent and subject matter experts who reviewed the policy, updated the policy, made sure that it was in full compliance with the current law. So I'm just looking at the prior policy and our current policy. You're going to notice that this one is updated, so it's going to be more detailed. It's going to include everything that's part of the current law.
Thank you.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I was just scanning through, Michelle, and one of the questions that I have is, and I don't know if I can compare this to our, our healthy workplace environment. I'm trying to figure out, why are we voting on this? Why is this coming before a council versus other things that are managed in our city manager's office?
Councilmember Braithwaite, you're saying you're wondering why this is coming
So-
forward as a resolution?
Correct. So I'm comparing this to our internal, like our workplace document that applies to staff. So I guess I'm thinking that this is more of an internal document, and I don't understand why it's coming as a resolution, is my first question.
Deputy Manager Stoneback has a contribution.
As indicated in the resolution itself, under the second whereas, it indicates that per the General Assembly Act that was passed, each governmental body shall adopt an ordinance or resolution establishing the policy. So I believe that we're obligated to do this by the law adopted by the General Assembly of Illinois.
Okay.
Yep, City Manager Goderski.
Good evening, everyone. That is correct. We are required by state law to adopt a resolution or an ordinance for elected officials with regard to the sexual harassment policy.
Councilmember Kelly.
Would you be able to just point out a few of the substantial differences, additions, or? Thank you.
If I could take a stab at that one, I discussed this with City Council Nicholas Cummings earlier this afternoon. He indicated to me that the only substantive change was this new version includes elected officials as well as staff members. There were some text differences between the two documents, but really the only substantive difference was that we are now covered by this policy as well.
And it's now state mandated, as pointed out. Okay.
And that would be, so as far as, it would be under the first section where it says prohibition on sexual harassment in the new policy, second paragraph, when it indicates this policy applies to all persons involved in the city's operations. It says including employees regardless of position, elected officials, applicants, interns, paid or unpaid, volunteers, vendors, contractors, subcontractors, consultants, and any other third party involved in our operations. Comparing that to the our prior policy did not include elected officials. It just said all city officials. It said agents, employees, but it didn't specify in detail like the new policy. And then as previously stated, there are some other structural changes, but as far as substantive, that would be the main who it applies to.
And so either to Dave or Michelle, so in the past, and forgive me if I didn't read this closely enough, if an elected official was accused or said something inappropriately to a staff member, that has been taken up, I guess there are two pursuits, so you can go criminal, and then you can also, would it go before the ethics board in the case of council?
Previously?
Or just both, I guess, before and now?
Well, now with this policy applying to elected officials as well, then any action that would violate this policy would be a violation of the actual City of Evanston policy prohibiting sexual harassment. And so it will explain toward the end on how to report. Let's see, the section.
I'm looking on page 6 of 9.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was on the old policy.
I'm on the new.
Okay, so let's see. So page 6. Okay, so as far as reporting is under the new policy, Section 3, procedure for reporting an allegation of sexual harassment. So that would include if an elected official violates this policy, then the individual who's making the allegation of the violation would be able to report under this policy.
Right.
So they could then contact, and they're given multiple places to contact within the policy. So Illinois Department of Human Rights, to the Illinois Department of Human Rights, Illinois Sexual Harassment Discrimination Helpline, to okay, they can report to a supervisor or manager. So they have multiple ways to report under Section 3, and that would include for elected officials as well.
Got it.
So, I mean, it did say officials before. It just added the word elected, which, I mean, is there anything different between officials versus elected officials?
I think
I think
before,
it's-
anecdotally, there just wasn't, it was very vague.
It's very explicitly clear now.
Now it's crystal clear, yeah.
And I think before with it saying all city officials, I'm not
Right.
sure if that was just those officials that were not elected. So, as you said, it makes it more clear. It's definitely more detailed and more clear.
Perfect.
I'll just read the response that I received. The mail was from you, Director Stonebeck. I'm not sure who crafted this portion of the text, but in answer to my question, I'll quote here, "The majority of this policy is the same as before. The policy was modeled after the Illinois Municipal League's proposed policy for municipalities. The city added a part to include elected officials into the policy and provide staff with a way to report any alleged sexual harassment by an elected official. The addition is consistent with Illinois Public Act 101-0221, requiring that municipalities add elected officials to its harassment policy. City also consulted with Littler Mendelsohn to approve the city policy. That company had previously reviewed our HR policies. And so per the Illinois Municipal League and Littler Mendelsohn's input, this does incorporate best practices for municipalities." Paraphrasing a little bit there, but I think you all received this email several hours ago as well.
All right. See any other questions or comments?
Councilmember Kelly,
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite,
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma,
Aye.
Councilmember Burns,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
All right. Item A10, again, these are items for consideration. Resolution 127-R-21, authorizing the city manager to submit grant applications for federal funding through the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Community and Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. Can someone move that?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I'm good with that one.
Yep, all good.
All right.
Councilmember Kelly,
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
All right, item A11, Resolution 128-R-21, authorizing the city manager to submit an application for grant funds from the Rebuild Downtowns and Main Streets Capital Grant. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
I will second.
All right. Any discussion? Councilmember Nusma.
I just want to note that what we are voting to approve is an application for a grant. Should we receive that grant, the city will have to come up with some matching funding. It's proposed that ARPA is a source of this matching funding. And so I just want to be clear that we are not voting to approve ARPA funding at this point. That's not something I would be comfortable with. We are only voting to approve the application for a grant. It's up to us, once we receive the grant, to come up with some place to find that money. It may very well be ARPA. I think that's probably the right direction to be thinking about. But as I've said before, I don't want to spend any more ARPA money until we've had a comprehensive discussion on ARPA.
Members of the committee, my name is Laura Biggs. I'm the city engineer. Councilmember Nusma, you are correct that this grant is proposing to use ARPA funds because that is what was proposed in the $750,000 bucket for economic development. This was part of that committee's proposal, but the council's not yet voted on that. And so we would not presume, but the application for this is due. And so we have to put in the application without knowing the exact source of funding. But we can, of course, always fall back to general obligation bond debt if that's the desire of the council.
Right.
Or we can choose not to accept the grant if it's awarded.
And this is a good way of leveraging whatever revenue source. If it is ARPA money, it's a good way of leveraging ARPA money. Take a little bit of ARPA and get a lot of money from another source. So
Yes.
It does make a lot of sense. I'm not questioning the suggestion we use ARPA. I just don't want to vote, I don't want it to appear tonight that we're voting to approve ARPA funding.
We are not.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
All right, item A12, ordinance 122-0-21, amending various sections of City Code 10-11-12, parking meter zones. Can someone move approval?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All right,
was that one?
seeing none.
Councilmember Kelly.
You want to come back to her?
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed. Councilmember Kelly.
So this is only a reduction? I'm sorry. Okay, aye.
Seeing no more items on the agenda, I move this meeting to be adjourned. Council, or we have planning and development, or
Yes.
planning and development will start
5:15.
5:15. Thank you.
Thank you.